Hey everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, both in the audience and my dear panelists here. My name is Nina Quist. I'm the CMO here at Eletive, where our mission is to help organizations build workplaces where people thrive. At Eletive, we build the tools for today's work life as well as for tomorrow's work life, empowering employees, managers, and leaders with the insights they need to grow together. Because we believe that when people succeed, organizations succeed. And that idea, how people and technology can evolve and work together, is exactly what brings us here today. This will be an open discussion, building on the themes already brought up during today's sessions, and we will give both. It will give both you who are on stage and our audience the chance to weigh in on all these important topics. So I'm super excited to dive into these questions with you from a place of curiosity, responsibility, and optimism, because as we've heard through all your talks, at the heart of every AI conversation needs to be the people aspect, which is exactly where HR shines. So before we dive into the topics of today, let's do a short round of introductions for those who haven't been listening in earlier. You want to go first, Katie?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nina. Great to be here. Greetings to you all from all over the world, from me in London. I am 58 years old and have been in business for 35 years, but I am on a journey of constantly learning every day. I've written 2 books, and my third book comes out on November the 3rd. And that's because the world of AI, artificial intelligence, moves so fast. So it's all about how do you apply AI to HR, in particular marketing and sales. I've worked with a lot of HR directors and people teams in every industry sector in most countries of the world. And really, as Nina just said, keeping people at the center of that, the human in the loop. I'm on the all party parliamentary group for enterprise adoption of AI. And I've been sharing this morning, and obviously we will through this panel, lots of insights, stealable innovation from other sectors, tools, platforms, and some practical scorecards. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you.
Wonderful, thank you. And Tove?
Hi everyone, Tova Griffin. I am a HR lead at Transdev in Sweden. Public transportation is our business, and my role involves working strategically with both systems and processes in the HR space. So everything from continuous listening to communication platforms, HR systems, etc.
Wonderful. And I just got note that René is joining us as well. I'm just going to go let him in. Hang on. Trying to get the tech to work. There he is. Hi, René. Glad that you can join us as well. We're just doing the rounds of introductions, so it's perfect timing. You go, Sasha, and then we'll...
Yeah, my name is Sasha Vintrich, and today I'm AI engineer at Eletive. And like Katie, I'm constantly learning. And today I also take on the role of teaching and making sure that the whole Eletive, all the departments, and our product is utilizing AI as efficient as possible. And it's really, really cool journey. And I've been part of building businesses and technology for over 30 years, and it still feels like I just started. So it's amazing.
Awesome. And René, if you could just give us a short intro to what you do, since not everyone has been in the previous sessions.
Yes, of course, and apologies for joining a second late.
No problem.
The name is René. I spent a lot of time on the other side of the table, so upskilling and running HR for large scaling companies. Struggled with kind of scalable, measurable, global upskilling programs, so founded Lapaya to address that issue and work a lot with clients on how that needs to be done in this day and age, where upskilling to augment what we can do with AI is, I think, one of the pressing concerns which are a lot of people's minds.
Wonderful. Okay, so before we start the discussions, I just want to also encourage everyone who is listening to bring your questions to the table and put them in the Q&A chat. And if they relate to what we're currently, like to the question we're addressing, I will try to also bring them up during the discussion, and we can try to be interactive in that sense. So the first topic I would like to talk a little bit more about. It's very clear that AI is transforming the world of work. And as we've touched upon in many of the sessions before, it does bring almost as much anxiety as excitement for many people. So I just want to hear a little bit more about your experiences and thoughts around these questions. Are people afraid of being replaced by AI? Should they be afraid? And how can organizations navigate this anxiety to build trust and reassure people and support people so that we can achieve what I thought that was a really catchy way you put it, Sasha. I think you going from anxiety to agency, and that's what we want to achieve. But how do we actually do that? And if you can like back up what you're saying with actual real world examples, I think that is very appreciated, because it's very easy to be high level, but like how do we actually succeed in this? You're nodding, Katie. Maybe you want to go
Yeah,
first.
absolutely, Nina. Yeah, definitely. So, as I said, all different sectors from cement to pharmaceuticals to telecoms and media, every sector, every conference I speak at, a workshop I run privately, there's always a group of people who are very, very afraid and worried about being replaced. And I think that stems from sometimes there's misinformation, sometimes there's lack of education, sometimes they've not really been communicated with and reassured by their own organization. So I think for me it's about naming that fear and then sort of like mapping out what that path will be. Of course people are going to worry that their roles are going to be replaced if HR or other teams are not sharing a kind of visible skills matrix. So I've worked with organizations where they're running these town halls, they're starting at the top and cascading it all the way down the organization. In publishing, I've worked with companies that are doing that. The very fact of the conferences I'm talking about, they are the go-to places where companies get together with their staff, with their supply chain, sometimes with their competitors as well, and debate the issues of the moment, like the skilling, like the regulation. So I think you name the fear, you give that credible skills map, you offer the credible upside. What does this mean for you? We're going to ring fence this time. We're going to, not just automate your tasks, we're going to augment them in this way. And I've seen lots of different companies do that. Um, and then there's that co-design policy. I've worked with some companies who are doing it with their employees. So they create a council, a kind of a council of AI champions. And they have worked with public relations agencies, even quite small companies who are doing that. So they're bringing people together and they're helping them create that. So what's acceptable use? What are the data boundaries? How do you escalate? And then I think the final one for me would be kind of like a fair transition incentive. So, starting to actually tie leaders' bonuses to the reskilling agenda and the deploying metrics, not just productivity. So I think there's some pointers that I would make.
Yeah, great points. Anyone else who wants to weigh in on this?
I can comment. I'm obviously talking from my industry's perspective, where self-driving buses and self-driving trains are becoming a very real threat to our frontline workers, where you see someone actually being replaced by technology. And I think that, whilst we're quite far away from that transitioning being, 100% completed, I think that organizations must prepare themselves for that transfer, that kind of transition. Some of the things that we are doing are moving towards skills-based organizations, being able to map skills within the company in a consequent manner throughout the globe. But also measuring engagement, measuring other aspects of work in a similar fashion, and including our performance management processes, both operational and people. So I think for smaller businesses, I think it's very easy to involve people immediately and be quite hands-on in the smaller group. I think for the larger organization that has a very large workforce who are highly operative, it's something that might take some time, but it also has to be done methodically and systematically, so that everyone develops along the same or in the same pace, I suppose. Here in our support functions at HQ in Sweden, what we've done is that we've taken that more hands-on approach, and we've involved the teams where we see an opportunity for automation and AI being an engine for greater efficiency in how we work. And that's led now to more highly engaged teams working on the solutions together, and in that way being able to influence how their job is changing. So yeah, I agree with Katie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a very tangible example, as you mentioned, with self-driving buses. There's, I mean, yeah, interesting.
If I can build on that, I just wanted to share, like I do a lot of work in the financial services, so probably the other extreme from the very physical and transport related world. And fairly recently, I was in an event with a lot of CHROs from leading European banking institutions. And I think one of them really put it fairly succinctly is what she's doing. She said, one, I need to put a story out there what AI is going to do. And I don't know the answers, but the one thing I can tell everyone is that I don't know the answers, but I think it will impact jobs massively and that I'm preparing for that. Kind of point one. Let's just be open about that in every part of the conversation. Secondly, she said, I want my HR business partners to have that conversation with all their business leading organization. We don't know what's going to change, but we know it's going to change. And let's indeed bottom up try to see if we can get the most important transformations out there and just make people aware and prepared of that. And then thirdly, make it very tangible for people, which is two storylines. One, if we act slower than the competition, then it is going to be a cost question. So the moment we experiment faster than our competition, we might get things wrong and there might be uncertainty, but at least we're not followers. And secondly, show people that they're being invested into. I think we have a good sense of some of the human skills, which will definitely be more important than today. If we take the augmentation kind of logic, and let's show people that we're very actively investing in these skills. So making them at least feel whatever the future is, it's going to be unknown. We're preparing ourselves for a number of these unknown scenarios. And that's something everyone can basically start doing today.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, because if you don't succeed in getting organizational buy-in from everyone, you will have people resisting the change instead, and sort of making it slower purposefully because they're afraid. So it's really a change management and the communication challenge that everyone is facing that is fundamental.
People don't like change. Let's be honest about it. So let's take them along.
This is change like on a whole different level than we're used to. Okay, so one challenge is resistant to change, but there's also the other side of the coin when people start relying a little bit too heavily on AI. If you have been following social media or the news, you probably come across the expression AI brain rot, where you tend to sort of outsource your whole life to AI, and you sort of almost abdicate your executive functions, and your brain basically shrinks. How do we as organizations prevent a situation where people sort of stop thinking critically and just because it's a lot, it's easy with AI to create a lot of output and quantity, but to maintain quality, you have to stay active yourself, right, and reflect on what you're doing. And do you have any thoughts around that or experiences?
I mean, I can jump in briefly there. Of course, an objective is to avoid that, but I think almost a bigger objective is to gain trust. If we don't have the human in the loop, then we aren't going to have the trust. We aren't going to avoid the hallucinations and so on. But I think so. If you've got that human in command, by design, then I think you are going to avoid, both of those. You're going to achieve the approvals and the trust and so on, but you're also going to avoid it, because then you've got just taking HR, every critical HR decision having a named human approver, so that the outputs that the AI tools give are, advice. They're not the definitive verdict. I think that's one thing. Um, and that kind of cognitive fitness. And I mean, there's loads of elements to this, but making sure that you've got sort of like micro learning, on some of those judgments, that people can see when is there bias, or when is there counterfactual information coming through, and so on. So we've got to kind of like put processes in and KPIs and so on, so that we don't allow that brain rot to occur.
I can add a little bit here as an AI engineer and in the engineering team. It's very crucial. It's very easy to get a lot of output from AI. And like anything you do in business, it's crucial to ask yourself, why do we need to do this? And why are we doing this before? Because with AI, it's so easy that you can do everything. And then you don't have time to verify it, and you don't upskill and learn from mistakes, because it's not your mistakes anymore. You have outsourced it to someone else. And seeing that, having that critical thought and asking why is the first step. And then building trust. And when you have trustful AI, you can automate it completely, but then you have delegated a task, like outsourcing it to someone else. And that is a multiple step journey, which is important to have.
Yeah, I nearly feel like our innovations team should be sitting here rather than me to answer this question. But and as I listen to you, Nina, I laugh, because my daughter, she actually thinks that I have to ask ChatGPT everything these days. So if I don't have the answer, I'm like, let's ask the chat, But I think if I reflect on my own journey using AI, I noticed that I've evolved in how I use it. So having the time and the space to play with AI in a safe space. So for us at TransDev, that means we've taken in Copilot and have our own version of it. We have a policy in place, and we also have training for our staff so that we can provide a safe learning space. We have very strict guidelines, therefore, also like what kind of content can you share with AI or not, because that's very difficult to know when you start using AI for the first time. And then what I'm noticing now, as our innovations team are working on very specific cases with our finance department, with our salaries team, and they're also identifying cases where they can go in and actually develop a solution, and in that way developing an optimal solution for using AI in a specific context. So right now we're working on a HR bot that will help staff search and understand information in connection with their employment, contract of employment, which can vary in our business, where we have number of collective agreements in place. So I think allowing people to learn, explore, experiment, and you'll go on that journey yourself. But then you'll end up like me, taking a photograph of a couple of ingredients and saying, "What can I cook with this?"
Which is great. I mean, it's just
brilliant.
Strike until you can't cook anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Just picking up on Gregor's comment in the chat there, I think you can, thinking of Tove's point there, you can upskill people in better analytical thinking. You aren't allowing the AI tools and platforms to do it for you. You're teaching the ability to take that information and analyze it and check it and decide on its appropriateness and so on. I don't think it means the end of analytics. I think it can mean the end of some of the basic grunt work. And I think people might lose the ability to be really resourceful and really know how to go and find information. But hey, I'd rather that be given to me and then create some of the more strategic things myself that are going to really get real value. So I think it does change the nature of our skills, but it shouldn't be the end of analytical thinking.
Yeah.
If I may build on that, I think for me it's actually more the start of, well, maybe the start is more important, but analytical thinking becomes even much more important. But if you go back to your question, Nina, on management level. So I think we have to kind of really train our management to be much more critical of what comes out, because teams can much easier get to that 70 or 80% output, which, and there we need to be specific, which for many jobs or for many elements for all our businesses, which are not mission critical, is probably fine. I mean, humans also don't create 100% output. But which elements do you want to make your competitive difference? Where do you want to woo your clients in simple terms? There you need that 100%. And their managers need to be much more critical that it doesn't, it looks good, let's move on, kind of AI generated version is, but it truly, this is where with AI, we have freed up time from our people that sit on the critical topics to go to good output. And I think, and that's tough to say, but again, the middle management, which is often a crunch in these kind of topics, but it's where it will boil down to. And their critical thinking, but real kind of ethical judgment are in these considerations also um, the different stakeholders well represented. And this is not just a logical answer that reads well, but actually overlooks something is going to be more important than ever. And I think that's what we need to focus on. Otherwise, we get that race to the bottom or to mediocrity or whatever the word is. Whereas I think we need to race towards value enhancement with this.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the biggest opportunities, if you would pick one or two each, that you think AI offers from an AR and people lens? So it could be within talent acquisition or performance or development, retention. Do you have any favorite like use cases or areas where you see AI really revolutionizing people operations or people strategy?
For me, it's twofold. It's that opportunity for the first time in a long, long while for the HR people function to be really strategic and much less tactical. So if we are, and I won't necessarily go into the names of the tools, but if we have on the one hand loads of different platforms like Eletive and others to do help with the engagement, the acquisition of talent, the retention, the ops, listening, the simulation. Okay, there's tools that can help you with all of that and platforms. And then on the other hand, as a team, you are now responsible for upskilling the whole organization in how they use AI in marketing, in finance, in legal, in sales. Okay, that's a dual function. And I think that for the ones that sees it is super strategic, because that's about how, to Renee's point a moment ago, how do we satisfy our customer needs profitably, our internal and our external customers? How do we differentiate ourselves? How do we gear ourselves for the future? I think AI allows HR teams a really strategic way of driving the organization forward with both those sides to it.
And by that you mean by being able to analyze all that coming from those
Having
platforms?
the tools for everyday improvements to all levels of the function of HR, the talent, the performance, the listening, the learning and development, one. And then two, taking a responsible role to be the strategic people that upskill the rest of the organization. So I think that dual role makes it at the right hand side of the CEO. And I think the HR team can be responsible for driving and creating a group of AI champions, helping create the right culture, helping upskill, taking the whole organization forward. So for me, it's the bigger piece that
Mm,
comes from the tactical and the strategic together. Does that make sense?
yes.
If I can build on that, I think, sorry, Sasha, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so it's a good example where like HR can upskill the leaders, the managers to handle this change and to beat the fear, because we are people. Some are early adapters like me, jump on anything that's new and try to learn, but some need time to understand and to learn. and having tools like Eletive where you can really see what the pulse of the team, and see the attrition risk is rising and people are afraid because there is change coming on, and then managers who understand the different people in the team, how they coach them and help them adapt to this change, and you see live stream that this affects the attrition risk, the engagement, and so on, and at the end the efficiency and the progress is really, really amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Nina, since you specifically asked about HR, I want to kind of say one very practical thing. But what I think AI will allow us to do is finally meet every individual colleague where they are at, whether that is on upskilling or giving them specific insight to data, whether it's the salary benchmarking that was referred to earlier, but really making sure that we can individualize kind of our service level to employees. You can also make that very practical. I've been experimented with a sales co-pilot where you can literally, you've loaded kind of all the knowledge and experiments of the product in there. And on your way to the client, you can basically give a very short prompt. This is the client, this is the company, this is the type of person I'll be dealing with. Let us have a short practice conversation. And you prompt even great sales leaders to think that through so you can really personalize that. And then there's the whole kind of strategic kind of story, because to be able to personalize and contextualize, you need to be able to much better know where are we going all together, and what Katie was saying, what is that strategic direction, and work hand in glove with your CEO or the C-suite team to not be, and I'm not saying we are, but I think there's a lot of teams that still are to that extent, that operational team that manages human resources, but that team that puts kind of the human capital that we have coupled in the forefront and make sure that can shine to the fullest potential as a group and as every single human as part of that organization.
I can only echo what you guys are saying. You know, taking HR out of the administration, swamp, making HR more strategic by removing time-consuming, repetitive tasks, helping decision making so that you can be there and execute and be out with people rather. And the same goes for management. If we can remove the time-consuming tasks from management, which is often about writing reports or whatever it may be, I find that one of the biggest issues for our leaders is that they don't have time to be lead, because they are so busy with admin often. So if we can help with that, we will release a lot of, energy and power, I believe. Yeah.
So when technology is used right, it's not replacing our humanity. It's giving us more time to be human with each other and to each other. So I completely agree. So next question is, when AI informs everything from hiring and promotions to performance evaluations and talent management, what ethical or governance guardrails do we need or should organizations put in place, and how? How do you maintain fairness, transparency, no biases, and accountability? What are your thoughts on that?
So I've got, there's a simple checklist. It's not a simple subject, but it's nice to simplify things. So think of facts, FACTS. Think of that checklist where you've got F for fairness, where you've got A for accountability, where you've got C, which could be confidentiality and consent, and then T for transparency, and then the next S, which is really safety and security. So I think if we think about things like that, then we're starting to, go down that, again, putting things in. Think back to the days of social media where we were, for example, I remember so many companies. I did a live weekly surgery on BBC Radio, and people were just bringing in an intern and they were saying, oh, she's young, she knows a bit about Facebook, not taking into account all of these policies and so on. And then eventually people realize we need a social media handbook. Well, we need an AI handbook. By its very nature, it needs to be iterative and agile, but it needs to cover off all those points that I just mentioned. So I think that's a useful facts checklist.
Yeah, sounds good. Anyone else who has any practical examples of how to maneuver this, or examples of challenges? Of course, it also depends on the context.
The one thing I'll add, because I think I basically agree with what Kaylee is saying, is that actually this topic needs to be a discussion on a senior enough level. Like, how do we balance between being so clamped down that it is a risk and compliance and IT topic, which I think it shouldn't be, and let's give everyone access to everyone and we're experimenting. So I think we need rules, regulation, guidebooks, but more importantly, we need somewhere, and ideally that is not just a task force, but at a minimum then a task force that reports back into some senior management level agreement, where kind of especially these trade-offs and successes are discussed, and where are we with some of these experiments potentially pushing the line. I think as soon as you kind of set up that level of governance body, you're building both the awareness and are hopefully agile and fast enough to catch kind of potential risks fast enough while not stemming innovation.
Because I see a big difference between larger companies and smaller companies, in the sense that the startups are running much faster often than the big corporations, who have a lot of course, security regulations and things preventing sometimes innovation from happening as well. So it's a
That's correct. And I think I also see in larger organizations, but then there's quite a lot of resource dedicated to kind of the governance around it. And the governance then is not only tech and security, but the governance is actually also ethics, compliance, stakeholder impact, and all of that, which ultimately, I think the ones that I've seen do it well, and well, of course, means we're probably 2% into the journey. So, well, in a very delimited kind of scope, is they have really freed up sufficiently senior resource to dedicate thinking time to this topic.
And it's not an even playing field, is it? Because all around the world, we're at different stages. The EU AI Act, in America, or what's happening geopolitically. I think it's making for a very difficult landscape, particularly if you are a multinational. But you're right. I think, even big companies need to operate as those small teams, that even if they're 20 people or 20,000, have someone from each department sharing best practice, coming up with some handbooks and guidebooks, and meeting regularly, and so on. I think that's really important, irrespective of their trade bodies or their regulators and what they have to do as an industry sector in terms of compliance. Because if you lose your clients' trust and your staff trust, very difficult to get that back.
Yeah. So if we look ahead in 5 years, what will the HR and people function look like in AI-driven enterprises? Which roles or skills do you think will disappear? Which will remain? And how can people professionals prepare?
Such a good question. I'm thinking with agentic AI, it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly that really takes off in the next couple of years, in the next year especially. And again, people at different pace depending on which sector and how innovative. To Sasha's point, do we want to be the laggard waiting for everyone, or do we want to be the innovator, or somewhere in the middle? But I think we'll certainly see more reshaped roles where you've got an AI workflow designer and you've got a lead for people, data, and insights, and you've got a learning experience architect. So I think we'll see in the progressive companies roles and names changing and skills changing, where the AI tools are doing many of those things that they used to do. So I think we'll certainly see that. And I think what will shrink will be, Tove said it there, the admin, the basic screening, the routine case management, and so on. But it's going to be very, very different. Virtual people, I don't think that's going to happen in 5 years, but agentic, I could definitely see. And again, Sasha might want to jump in here and bring that to life a little bit. But I think, for me, that could be the game changer.
Yeah, the AI agents are really, really already here. Like there are AI agents doing screening the recruitments, writing the job ads, and even those who are applying for the jobs are using agents to apply for the jobs. So it's only agents talking to each other already. And so So yeah, the future is going to be different, and what it will contain, we'll see. But it is very interesting, because you can, as an individual, you can apply to many jobs, find the jobs much easier, and the recruiter, the HR, can handle many more tasks and focus on what's driving the energy, the engagement, instead of administration. Because if you were doing work which drains your energy, then you don't last long, or you don't do your best. And that's really what I see. When you get the energy and you can really focus on what you like and what you can add the best to the business, then it's really, really amazing progress.
Agree. It's that point we talked about briefly earlier of the people analytics, isn't it? You become more strategic. You're looking at workforce planning, you're looking at change leadership, you're looking at enablement and so on. And also, to Renee's point, hyper personalization becomes real. Both for the internal customer, your people, and the external customer. We no longer group people in a really homogenous way. Me, female, 45 to 60. No, Katie gives consent. This is what we can do. And we can not only tailor our comms to that individual, but we can start to tailor the internal product and service, and to the external customer the same as well.
Yeah, and maybe from a slightly different perspective, but trying to make it practical. What I also would love to see, or what I expect to see actually, but I also hope it, in a couple of years, we see also more rotation through departments. So even more than today, we see HR professionals doing a 3-year gig in a different part of the business, or vice versa, having professionals as part of the talent programs or general development programs rotating through HR departments for a 2 or 3 year kind of stint, and getting topics like reverse mentoring and reverse coaching more active, to make sure that we really kind of find each other a lot better and a lot more. Because I think with both of the trends that Katie and Sasha were discussing just now, we need to make sure that, well, that there's much more mutual understanding and around real deep understanding how the whole company works, what everyone does, what makes people tick, and that can only, and ultimately, I strongly believe it can work if we as people find each other easier, and that can only work if you really have been in the shoes or the hand and feet, or you've worked directly with some of the other people. So I expect that these kind of concepts hopefully get even faster translated into reality.
Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I'm just so glad that you guys have so many clear ideas, because I'm struggling a little bit. If I'm thinking, what would we do differently, and how would we operate differently as a HR team? We are quite, thinly spread already. We're not a huge HR team, considering the size of the business that we are running, but perhaps the number of people that we employ might reduce drastically. I'm not sure. Or the makeup and the skills of people that work for a company like ours will be different, and that will require a different type of, let's say, service from our HR team. I'd like to think that we'd be more efficient, let's say, but also more perhaps meeting the needs of the individual, as you'd say. This is what I hear echoing in your responses in any way, because right now, in many cases, HR are really struggling to find the time to fulfill all the needs of its businesses, and very often the challenges we're faced with and that we have to deal with are not necessarily connected to the let's say the day-to-day ongoing of the business, but it could be starting up of a business. Many of our contracts span from 5 to 10 years, sometimes 15. I could be slightly wrong here. Let me explain that, because I'm not an expert on our contracts, but contracts in the public sector is decided on by a public transport authority, and we're very much in their hands as to how much money we have to run that business. But that presents its own set of challenges, and taking over employees from a different company and transferring them to another is in itself a very costly exercise for both businesses. So I'm just thinking that maybe that's where these type of solutions can add value as well. That's very practical perspective that I'm trying to take now, because who knows who will work in our HR team in 5-10 years, you know. But Katie, you had an idea there.
I'm really pleased that you've raised something so practical and have a reality check. Because for me, it's not tech for the sake of tech.
No.
We don't have to be an innovator, and we have to, you as an organization over the next 5 years have to constantly assess, where you're at, what your strategic drivers are, what success looks like, how you stay competitive, and any other metrics, rather than just moving ahead with AI solutions for the sake of it. So I think that's really important to stress, because it's going to be very different. I've worked with public sector in the States and in Australia this year, and they're all at very different paces, and their drivers and budgets and critical success factors are very, very different. And for many of them, this is only just beginning to come onto the agenda. So I think it's important to have that reality check, and it isn't fast paced for everyone, but so long as we are open and we're constantly assessing our competitive scenario, and again, what success looks like, and so on.
Okay, so as you said, it's early days for many HR teams when it comes to AI. Many are adopting it a lot, but many are also trying to figure out how to really make the most of this new technology. So if for HR teams and people leaders who are ready to get going but don't know quite where to start or what to focus on, what is one concrete step that they can take in the next 3 to 6 months to really start embedding AI in their workflows? Where would you start?
I'm happy to start, and I'll be brief. I would run one governed pilot in a high impact but low risk area of their business, and then assess that months 0 to 6. 0 to 1 readiness and rules, month 2 build and train, and then 4 to 6 sort of operate and evaluate it. So I think something like that. And then I shared in my talk early this morning a scorecard which goes through 10 sort of core areas, and so on. So a couple of practical tools that they can actually do to see real benefit and learnings, and so on.
I can be super practical. For my HR team here at Transdev in Sweden, it was a matter of first getting sign-off from group to be allowed to switch on the AI functionality of the systems that we already had. We're noticing that a lot of the systems that we have in place already have started developing AI functionality, and we just needed to be green-lighted to switch them on and start using them and learning from them. And then obviously in extension, selecting a provider in Eletive who also has an AI functionality, and ensuring that your services, your AI services, are compliant with the directives and the guidelines and policies that we do have in place. But I think it's been very easy for us to start testing. Obviously, our innovations team are running cases, and we also have interns from civil engineering partnership we have with the Royal Civil Engineering Academy here in Sweden called Tekniksprånget. So we have a number of interns every year, and they usually used for working on these real cases to develop new functionality, because they often come in with no built-in rules on what's done or should be done a certain way. So that's been very useful. But start using the AI where it already exists in the systems that you already have.
Yep.
Was the quick route for us.
Yeah, and I have, like I mentioned, I had workshops for all the different departments at Eletive, and our HR department has also used AI in the tools they already had. But me sharing knowledge about agents leveled them up to the next level to automate more or even get even better results from using the AI tools they already had. So making sure that using the tools you already have and starting small and then sharing knowledge, because the knowledge across department should travel really, really fast in organization to become useful. it's really important.
And I'll wrap it up by saying amen to what has been said. Very much indeed. Make sure that you can and are allowed to use the tools that you have and build on that and learn from that. I'm also a big fan indeed of the workshops to kind of demystify what's going on and can see what is low risk, high impact, and where can we move the needle. I'll add thirdly to that, really in our upskilling strategy, which everyone will have for next year, make sure that you explicitly address this. So how is some of the things that you're doing, or at least transitioning that one step further into, hey, how do we make you further proof? We don't know exactly what AI is going to do. We do know what our best humans and our unique human skills are. So how can we make sure that we also just tell the organization that's proactively what we're going to be doing and continue to be doing?
Yeah, great advice. We have 4 more minutes if we have any questions from our listeners and viewers. If you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A chat. We don't have any questions as far as I can see. It could be that people are getting hungry and wrapping up to going to lunch. Is there anything, final notes you want to share before we wrap up?
Change is coming, lead it, and don't wait for other people to overtake you.
That's a good wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a great lunch and see you in the upcoming sessions.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.